Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. This is one that I've wanted to do for the couple of days, but I've wanted to let it kind of sink in and not ride the coattails of this incident. I just want to pay tribute in a video to Mr. Robbie Robertson of the band who passed away late last week. I'm filming this on Monday the 14th of August, so I'm dedicating this video to Robbie Robertson, to the band. I felt like I wasn't going to do a video at one point, but then I kind of thought my channel leans very heavily on Americana artists and Americana music, and a lot of people point their finger at the band and say that they were the ones to really mainstream Americana music. So I think it would be a disservice to my channel if I didn't say a few words about Robbie Robertson. Of course, Robbie Robertson, who you shall see right here, was the lead guitarist and the principal songwriter of the band out of Canada. Now, of course, Robbie was not one of the singers in the band. I mean, he did sing some background vocals, but it was usually very low in the mix. But Robbie, for all intents and purposes, was the songwriter for the band. This is his 2016 autobiography called Testimony. I believe it was supposed to be a part one to his story. I think he was working on a second part. Don't know how far along he got with it, but this is a fantastic autobiography if you don't know it. It covers his early life, and it essentially ends with the last waltz, which was the final performance by the original quintet of the band of Robbie Robertson, Garth Hudson, Levon Helm, Richard Manuel, and Rick Danko. Now, after Robbie's passing, only Garth Hudson, the organ player, the horn player, multi-instrumentalist, is the last man standing, and ironically, he's the oldest member of the band as well. But there's Robbie and the boys. There is Garth in the middle, who's still with us. Robbie over here, and look at that. I mean, they look like they're from the 1800s. Again, you all know the story of the band. They originated up in Canada as the backing band for Ronnie Hawkins, who is an American rockabilly singer. And then after they disbanded with Ronnie, they joined together as Levon and the Hawks. Levon, of course, being the lone American in the group from Arkansas, and the rest of the guys were from Canada. And they toured for a while, eventually settling upon the name The Band, which Robbie Robertson, you can see in interviews, talks about. People just refer to them as, the band, like, oh, where's that band playing? Or like, oh, it's Bob Dylan and the band. Like, Dylan has this band now. So they kind of, picked up the moniker of the band, and it stuck with them. Now, again, as you know, the band were the group that was backing Dylan on his 1966 tour, very infamous tour where he went electric and was booed most evenings, including the infamous concert at Manchester Hall in the UK where somebody yelled Judas, and then Dylan looks back to the guys in the band and says, "Play it effing loud," where the band just rip into like a Rolling Stone. And then, of course, they would finish that tour. Dylan would have his, motorcycle accident in 1966, which kind of sidelined him in his touring days. And then the band and Bob Dylan, without Levon for a while, reconvened up at Big Pink, which is a house up in Saugerties, New York. And they came together and put together what became known as the Basement Tapes. This is the bootleg series that Bob Dylan's camp has put out. Again, there's Robbie right there, and Bob, Rick Danko, and Levon Helm there. That's from 1969 when they played at the Isle of Wight Festival, I believe, that picture. But the Basement Tapes, it was essentially Bob Dylan going back to his folk kind of roots. And him and the band, again, Levon was kind of tired of the music business. He was tired of getting booed. Like, he was just sick of it, so he left, and he came back for like the last few days of recording at Big Pink, which was the name of a house up in New York. And they got together and they played a bunch of old folk songs like My Bucket's Got a Hole in It, Spanish is the Loving Tongue, Poe Lazarus, um, Big River, Folsom Prison Blues. They played Rock, Salt, and Nails. Um, let's see, Kicking My Dog Around, Lock Your Door. And then, they're saying like, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, stuff like that. And let's see, what else? Apple Suckling Tree, Wildwood Flower, 900 Miles from My Home, Santa Fe, All You Have to Do Is Dream. So they were doing like all these songs that were just coming out of Dylan's head, out of the band, just whatever they could play. They were putting it together, and they were playing in the basement of this house in New York. And then all of a sudden, Dylan starts writing songs like This Wheel's on Fire, You Ain't Going Nowhere, I Shall Be Released, Nothing Was Delivered, let's see, Ain't No More Cain was a song that they played. Let's see, Don't You Tell Henry. So, I mean, Quinn the Eskimo, When I Paint My Masterpiece, stuff like that, were coming out of these sessions, and Dylan was playing with the band and putting together this music that was just, it was a mix of this old-timey, music, this old country music, and then some gospel, some bluegrass, a little bit of rock, and putting it all together and putting together the basement tapes. Again, just playing this just incredible acoustic rock music, essentially. And again, this is at a time, this is 1967. This is at a time when you're getting albums like, albums from Big Brother and the Holding Company, Jefferson Airplane, Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles. Again, Hendrix. You're getting this, the Grateful Dead are starting to come into their own. The San Francisco sound is just becoming this, this is like the new sound. And then all of a sudden, you get an album like John Wesley Harding by Bob Dylan that comes out and just completely looks like nothing else that's coming from that era. Well, then the band put their hat in the ring, and in, let's see, what year was this? 1968, the band released their debut, Music from Big Pink. And then nobody knew what this was. Like, this is just, what kind of music is this? And even like the mystery of it, there's no picture of the band. This is a painting by Bob Dylan. On the back, you have a picture of Big Pink. And then you open, the first song is this like bluesy kind of soulful Richard Manuel vocal with Tears of Rage, which is this, co-write with Bob Dylan. You have Robbie Robertson songs on here like The Weight, which is the band's signature song, Chest Fever, This Wheel's on Fire, and I Shall Be Released, 2 Bob Dylan tracks, Caledonia Mission. So Robbie is, dipping his toe into the water of songwriting. He's not fully there yet, because they're doing these Dylan covers. They're doing, Long Black Veil, which is an old country song. But you hear the song The Weight with this acoustic, just, down, 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 and then Levon coming in on the kick drum, the doom, 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 boom. It's a song that Robbie put together. It's like a song about coming of age, and it's got like some religious allegory to it. It's just a beautiful track, and we all know the song. It's become a sing-along standard at acoustic shows. So Music from Big Pink shows up, and I've got other albums too. I mean, like the Brown album, the follow-up. This is again from 1969, and Robbie really starts coming into his own. Songs like Across the Great Divide, Rag Mama Rag, and then song number 3, one of Robbie's crowning achievements, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. Now keep in mind, the band are Canadian. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 members of the Canadian Brotherhood, as it were, and then you have Levon from Arkansas. Robbie, who, other than just a few tours in the United States, And, traveling down to Levon's home, if I remember correctly from the testimony autobiography, Robbie writes this song about, the Civil War, which Canada was not really involved in the United States. And he writes this song knowing that Levon can sing it, being a Southerner, and this just mournful sound about longing and like the pride that they had during the Civil War in the South, where I'm from. So I can like fully relate to these historical, references of, Robert E. Lee walking down the street and the people like waving flags, honoring, this general that they put so much hope into during the Civil War, though it was, it was not a just war. People in the South held on to that for so long. And to hear Levon's mournful vocals on these lyrics that Robbie puts together, you know, Virgil Cain is my name, and I come on the Danville train, Danville, Virginia, till Stoneman's cavalry came and they tore up the tracks again in the winter of '65. They were hungry, just barely alive. By May 10th, Richmond had fell. It's a night I'll remember oh so well, the night they drove Old Dixie down. And all the bells were ringing, the night they drove Old Dixie down. The people were singing. Just so good. And Robbie just putting it to paper, being from Canada. You'd think he lived through the Civil War. This picture looks like a bunch of Confederate Civil War, veterans. Just beautiful. And then you have songs on here like Whispering Pines, Rocking Chair, Unfaithful Servant, the beautiful Rick Danko track, Up on Crippled Creek, which is funky, Across the Great Divide. I mean, it's just never ending. I mean, I don't have all the band's albums. An album like Stage Fright with W.S. Wolcott Medicine Show, The Shape I'm In, which is just funky, which you would know from the Last Waltz album. Time to Kill, Strawberry Wine, Sleeping. And they're all multi-instrumentalists, and we all know this. Cahoots is another one that I own. Not as well loved. Life is a Carnival is just like this great like New Orleans Allen Toussaint style song with Robbie's fantastic lyrics. When I Paint My Masterpiece, they do a version of Bob Dylan's track. 4% Pantomime with Van Morrison. Just absolutely, just a fantastic record. And then Robbie again is putting these lyrics to paper. You've got these live albums like Rock of Ages where the band just put it on full force. Robbie's playing that guitar with just like that great tone that he had and that high E string that he said in the book that he originally took off the high E string and put a banjo string on there instead because it bends easier. So he got like this like almost like eerie tone to his guitar, just beautiful. Again, songs like Ophelia, The Shape I'm In, Unfaithful Servant, Life is a Carnival, Stage Fright, Get Up Jake, Up on Cripple Creek, Rockin' Chair, just wonderful, wonderful music. And again, the most beautiful song that I think he ever wrote was It Makes No Difference, sung by the fantastic and late Rick Danko. Just a beautiful, beautiful song of longing and just agony in that song. It's just so good. And then you can't talk about the band without The Last Waltz, their final hoorah as the 5-piece that they were. Again, the other 4 members would reconvene in the 80s, tour for a while. Richard Manuel, unfortunately, would take his own life, and then the trio would tour up until the death of Rick Danko in 1999, I believe. But if you don't know The Last Waltz, you've been living under a rock. Please listen to it. I mean, please, please, please listen to The Last Waltz. It is an education in music. You have guests on here like Van Morrison, Neil Diamond, Joni Mitchell, Dr. John. Bob Dylan shows up at the end. Neil Young is on here. Ronnie Hawkins shows up. Paul Butterfield is on here. Eric Clapton is on here. Muddy Waters is on here. Bobby Charles. Emmylou Harris is on there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful record. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the band. This is how I was first introduced to them. This is their greatest hits. Again, it's got everything on there that you would want to start with the band. And this was given to me by my aunt and uncle. And then I've got 2 Bob Dylan related albums. This was when they reconvened with Bob Dylan in 1974. Planet Waves, kind of a muddy sounding album with the beautiful song Forever Young on here. It's got the gorgeous wedding song at the end. Hazel, Tough Mama, On a Night Like This. It was Bob Dylan back together with the band after 8 years. So a must for band and Bob Dylan enthusiasts. And then their dual live album with Bob on that tour Before the Flood, which is ironic because they don't actually do any songs from Planet Waves on here. But you have Dylan songs on here like Most Likely You'll Go Your Way and I'll Go Mine, Lay Lady Lay, Rainy Day Women, Knocking on Heaven's Door. But then you also have songs by the band like Up on Cripple Creek. They sing I Shall Be Released, Endless Highway, The Night They Dribbled Dixie Down, Stage Fright. They do The Shape I'm In, When You Awake, The Wait. Just fantastic. It's one of my favorite live albums of all time, and it's an absolute must for music lovers. And then I also have this band sticker that I purchased at a record store in Tennessee a few years ago. So, Robbie, thank you for all the years of songwriting and just fantastic melodies, for the guitar, that the inspiration that you've given to so many of my favorite artists. I mean, artists like Nathaniel Rateliff, the Wood Brothers, Old Crow Medicine Show, the Avett Brothers, just so many Americana artists that look to you. Margot Price, Tom Petty, even, just groups that look to you as an inspiration. You've created so many amazing bands because of your music, and it is just a huge loss in the music world without you. So, Robbie, rest in peace, and yeah, well, just listen to some band music. So, in the meantime, y'all be good, take care, and we will talk to you very soon on the next one.